Everyone hear me? Okay. Good. Tell me what you're hearing. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to call to order the regular city commission meeting Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky?
Here.
Commissioner Hudak?
Here.
Commissioner Farnes?
Here.
Vice Mayor Preston?
Here.
Mayor Gantz?
Here. Will you please stand for a moment of silence? Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We please have approval of the city commission meeting minutes for the regular city commission meeting of December 7th, 2021.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Farnes, second by Vice Mayor Preston. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Acknowledgement of our city board meeting minutes of Planning and Zoning Board of November 4th, 2021, Community Appearance Board meeting of October 13th, 2021, and the Community Redevelopment Agency meeting October 12th, 2021.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Farnes, Vice Mayor Preston, seconded. All in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Approval of our agenda for January 4th, 2022.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Passes unanimously.
For members of the public wishing to provide comments during tonight's meetings, 3 minutes will be provided, however, 1 additional minute can be granted other minutes. Anyone connected online in Zoom video must hover the mouse at the bottom of the screen and click the participant tab. On the right, click raise hand. You'll be recognized by your profile name and your audio will be unmuted. Those participating via mobile or landline, dial *9 to raise your hand. You will be recognized by the last 3 digits of your number. You may dial *6 to unmute if necessary.
Thank you. Our very first item is a certificate of appreciation to Joel Smith, the Executive Director of Deerfield Beach Community Cares. Is Joel here tonight? And Joel, there you are. Joel Smith, a former director of the Florida Initiative for Suicide Prevention, was brought to the city of Deerfield Beach after 2 teenagers ended their lives standing in front of trains. In September, Joel established Deerfield Beach Community Cares as a not-for-profit corporation geared towards bringing awareness to the importance of mental health in the city of Deerfield Beach. Joel is always out in the community, connecting resources to promote mental health awareness. Joel has and will continue to promote mental health awareness in city lectures, focus groups, and health fairs here in the city. Joel, we want to thank you very much for all of your efforts here in the city of Deerfield Beach, your hard work, your dedication, everything that you've done in bringing awareness to mental health in the city. And we want to thank you for creating an oasis of health and hope here in our city. We'd like to present you.
I want to thank the City Commission, the City of Deerfield Beach for welcoming Deerfield Beach Community Cares, for making a major effort to help people identify where they are on the arc of wellness and then help them reach out and get the supports they need to do so. Our phrase is be kind to your mind. I have stickers for people if they would like them tonight, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Joel. Thank you so much. This is a certificate of recognition. This is one of those things where we're happy and yet very sad at the same time. I think Alfred's probably more happy than we are, but I can tell you this. This certificate of recognition is presented to Alfred Richardson for dedication to the city of Deerfield Beach for the past 30 years of service. Alfred started working for the city in 1991 as a driver collector for the Department of Sustainable Management. Alfred has been a hardworking employee that has always put the residents and his team's best interest in front of himself, and it's always taken to heart. Alfred always displayed his friendly personality with everyone who encountered and provided outstanding service in the past 30 years for the city of Deerfield Beach. On behalf of the city of Deerfield Beach, on your retirement, Alfred, we thank you for your years of service, your dedication, and just for being a fantastic person. We'd like to present this to you.
Like to say that Deerfield given the opportunity to serve the city of Deerfield. It was a great ride. So, the ride got to go to me, and I truly enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred. And it says something about how great of an employee is when you've got some of his team workers here to see him off. So congratulations, Alfred. Hey guys, again. Our next item, well, this is a long one. The narrative was written, I believe, by some guy who War and Peace, but it's well worthy of it. And I do want to make sure that Vice Mayor Preston speaks on this as well. Second only to accidents, suicide is the leading cause of death for persons 15 to 24 years of age. Furthermore, suicide continues to plague our youth throughout Broward County and the state of Florida. During a recent event at one of our city facilities, city staff realized the presence of a youth who was unfamiliar to them. In an attempt to welcome the newcomer, staff introduced themselves and began to recognize signs of trouble. The youth exhibited some characteristics of being in emotional distress. Staff became concerned for the well-being of this individual. While they continued to be compassionate and attentive, staff members were also able to elicit and recognize warning signs of self-harm, so they recruited the assistance of a third staff member, hoping to further ease the youth's concerns and make them more comfortable discussing personal issues. As the staff continued to develop rapport with the teen, realizing the seriousness of the situation, one of them momentarily stepped away and notified their supervisor to get further assistance. The supervisor, who across the city working on a major upcoming event, became immediately concerned. And recognizing the urgency, dropped everything, and after getting sufficient information, contacted the BSO committee, who quickly sent 2 deputies to the location. City staff, in such a short amount of time, were able to garner enough confidence from that youth that when BSO arrived, the deputies were able to seamlessly conduct their own independent investigation. Based on their findings, deputies also determined that this was a serious life-threatening emergency, and were able to get the youth needed intervention with healthcare professionals. The youth, encouraged by the compassion and the care of the city staff, were receptive to this life-saving intervention. A few weeks later, city staff and deputies were able to follow up and reunite with the team, who has become very engaged in a variety of events that have a positive impact and have positively impacted other youth and various members of the community. Relationships have also been built with the youth's family, who are grateful for everyone's efforts. The compassion, diligence, attentiveness, quick thinking by staff and BSO are to be commended, as well as the seamless and cooperative nature of how BSO integratively works with our city staff. These stories don't always turn out this good, so I want to thank our staff members and BSO for all of their hard work in doing this. Vice Mayor Preston, would you like to say a few words before I announce the names?
It's so important that
when all of you hear something of this nature, what the mayor just read is the very nice crafted side of it. But what's the reality? The reality is, had staff not acted, had BSO not acted, you would be reading about a tragedy. And you know what often is said once we see a tragedy of one of our young ones that, you know, that we lose? Well, what could have been done? Why didn't anybody do anything? That's all after the fact. The fact is that they noticed something at a very crucial time and decided to act on it. This is not good. This is outstanding. And if you don't know about it, you know, it just passes by. You need to know. You need to know what your staff is doing in the city of Deerfield Beach. You need to know how BSO is assisting and responding in issues like this. So what this is that people who care, people who prevented a tragedy. And you know, the award that they get tonight, it's only a small token, it's a piece of paper. But what's the reality? The reality is their hearts was in the right place. The reality is they care. The reality is that they showed passion. And for that, a human being was able to enjoy Christmas, was able to go into the new year, and that person is breathing. That's the reality. And so I am so very proud of our staff who didn't let this become a tragedy. And I'm also equally as proud of BSO who just, you know, cared and acted. And because they worked together, the outcome, as the mayor said, is great. I was over at Oviedo McKeithen during the holidays, and was doing the, you know, the Santa time. And one of BSO's officers, one of their female officers, was sitting there talking to these girls on the bench. And it just really touched me because, you know, that's a very challenged area. And the BSO officer, she was just sitting there talking to these young girls. And it was so beautiful. It was like girls being girls, you know, and I just said, you know, that's what it's all about. People is caring, people that really actually care. And that's how we make a difference. And so for that, I'm very, very happy. Congratulations. Thank you.
On behalf of the city of Deerfield Beach, for your compassion, your attentiveness, and your decisiveness demonstrated by your life-saving actions during this critical event, your outstanding efforts are appreciated and commendable. We'd like to recognize Anthony Carter, Dale Williams, Elizabeth Ricci, Luz Darasone, Deputy Caitlin Spear, and Deputy Ariel Saunders. Thank you.
Okay, item number 4 on tonight's agenda is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 98 Land Development Regulations, Article 3 Zoning District Regulations, Section 98-59S Open Space of the City of Deerfield Beach Land Development Code to provide for beach chair and umbrella setups as an accessory use to a beach use in the S Open Space Zoning District, subject to conditions, providing for conflicts, severability, codification, and an effective date. This is second reading. I did give a detailed overview of this ordinance on first reading, and I'm available to answer any questions that the commission may have on this.
Commissioner, you have any questions before we open it to the public? Not seeing any. Is there anyone from the public who care to comment on this item? Yes, sir. Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Claude Dubois, Wyndham Deerfield Beach Resort, 2096 Northeast 2nd Street, on the beach by the pier. Against commissioners. Last month you showed support, for what we wanted to do, but I wanted to clarify some of the comments that were made. We are not here to kick the public out of the beach. We, 6 to 7 months out of the year, we rely on the local community to survive. And we are not planning on doing anything less or more than what the city is currently doing. Without the support of the locals, supporting our restaurants and also our guest rooms during the off-season, this hotel would not be where it is and as successful. We are very respectful of the constituents and very respectful of the people who live here. And we just want to offer a better service to our guests and also extend that to the community.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the public here to comment on this item? Not seeing any. Is anyone written in on first? Okay, I'm going to close it to the public. Commissioner Grosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I can count the math from first reading, how this is going to go, but I still think this is a mistake in as much as it has nothing to do with the Wyndham and there being a great community partner to us in the city of Deerfield Beach. But when we craft an ordinance tailored specifically to one business that affects the entire beach area or the entire zoning district, I think it just sets a bad precedent. And that's where I have the hang up. Nothing against the Wyndham, but again, I have issues and problems with it. And I'm still a no vote, but I just wanted to relay those concerns on the record tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else in the commission? Commissioner Parnas.
Yes. Private owners can do pretty much what they want with their property. We had somebody who had a trailer on the beach. They owned a piece of property. We fought with them for years until we finally bought them out and got it removed. The Wyndham has proved to be an excellent corporate partner to us and to the city of Deerfield Beach. What do they want to do? They want to give their guests chairs and umbrellas as part of their stay and an amenity for being a guest at the hotel. The alternative is you hire a company or give a company a contract to sell those guests umbrellas and chairs, which I think is not right. Next, are we going to tell them you can't give them a free cocktail with dinner because somebody else doesn't do it? No. This is their property. They've always opened that property to the city residents or guests who visit the beach. And if you want to get a free umbrella and chair, all you got to do is check into the hotel. You don't want to check into the hotel, then rent it from whoever has the contract for umbrellas and chairs. They're adding it to an amenity, just like a free buffet on Friday night to their guests. Are we going to restrict that too because it might hurt a restaurant? Of course not. I support this because I feel they've been great partners to us and to the residents and guests of Deerfield Beach and the use of their beach that they own as if it belonged to the city. What are they really asking for? To allow their guests to have an amenity. I support this wholeheartedly, and I'm asking my fellow commissioners to do the same.
Thank you, Commissioner. I will say this, I agree with Commissioner Drosky in the fact that we shouldn't be crafting ordinances that affect the entire city just for specific situations in general. But I also think that we need to have the flexibility when you have a unique situation to put ordinances in place to resolve issues that come up. I don't think this is narrowly pointed in that direction that it causes an adverse effect to the rest of the city. I think it makes sense. I do support it. You know, we don't do spot zoning for a reason. That's something we don't do, but we do make ordinances in time to try to alleviate and provide some relief in situations where it's needed. So I support this, and hopefully we can have a motion here. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also understand Commissioner Drosky's point of view. I do. But one of the things that I'm most proud of with this commission is our ability to have foresight, to see that if we don't put something in place now, that there are potential avenues of contention in the future. And that's what this ordinance is doing. Because if we don't do something now, yes, Wyndham has been a tremendous partner for the city. But who knows what happens in the future? So by putting something in place now, we're looking forward into the future to prevent any kind of future, disputes between the two entities. And so therefore, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve this. Thank you.
Second,
Motion from Commissioner Hudak, second by Commissioner Parnas. Your roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
No?
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas.
yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 5, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 34, Environment, Article 4, Outdoor Lighting Restrictions, Section 34-60, Beach Area Outdoor Lighting Restrictions, and Chapter 46, Offenses, Section 46-31, Open Burning of the City Code of Ordinances to incorporate the State of Florida Model Sea Turtle lighting requirements, providing for codification, severability, conflicts, and an effective date. This is second reading.
Is there anyone from the public who care to comment on this item? Madam Clerk, is anyone written in? Not seeing anyone, we could close it to the public commission.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second,
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Preston, second by Commissioner Parnas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous.
Item number 6 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 98, Land Development and Regulations, Article 4, Supplementary Regulations, Section 98-3, Definitions of the City Land Development Code, to add definitions related to docking and mooring facilities, amending Section 98-87, Docking and Mooring Facilities, to amend the city's docking and mooring facilities regulations, providing for codification, severability, conflicts, and effective dates. Second reading.
Commissioner, do you have any comments before I open it to the public? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I would just ask staff to define to the public what this really is about. When we talk about docking and mooring, we're using terms that a lot of people are not familiar with. So if you would define that for the public, greatly appreciate it.
Vice Mayor, I believe I have Mr. Power on through Zoom this evening who can address this. He does have he can explain that. Additionally, he could present the same presentation he did last time if the commission wants to see that as well.
Mr. Power.
All right, hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, hi, Eric Power, Director of Planning Development Services. Commissioner Preston, I apologize, I didn't hear the full question.
I just would like for you to define to the public, when you refer to docking and mooring, what does that really mean? Because a lot of people would read this and not really know what that means.
Docking and mooring refers to the the storage of personal watercraft, whether it's residential or commercial in the marina, and the regulations that come to it regarding setbacks and necessary clearances between adjacent properties and the waterway itself, so that everyone has full access to intercoastal areas, canals, and such forth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who'd care to comment on this item? Not seeing any, I'm gonna go to close to the public. Clerk Miller Road. Okay. Close to the public commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Commissioner Parnas, second by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, passes unanimously.
We're now at the public comment portion of tonight's agenda. Persons addressing the commission shall state his or her name and address and may speak for 3 minutes unless extended for 1 additional minute by the mayor. This is the time of tonight's meeting for public comment on items that are not on the agenda. If you have comment on items that are on the agenda, the time to do that is when the agenda item is called and the public comment period is open. And as a reminder, no comment shall be made related to the personal life or personal qualities of any person, and no language which would offend persons of ordinary sensibilities shall be permitted.
Clerk, is anyone right then? Okay. Anyone here in the chamber would like to speak? Yes.
Happy New Year, everyone. My name is William Lane, and I live at 11 Guilford A in Deerfield Beach, in Century Village. Last month, you guys brought up a subject about speeders in Deerfield Beach. And I'd like to talk a little bit about speeders in Deerfield Beach, exclusively in Century Village. For years now, and I've been a resident there for 6 years, I'm the president of 2 associations. In Century Village, there's about 24 miles of road, and about 4 or 5 miles of that is 25 miles an hour. Well, I don't even want to talk about that because most people don't drive 25 miles an hour. And that's just a known thing in the village. But inside the village, the speed limit is 15 miles an hour. And where I am, in Tilford A, we have a speedway. We have about a half a mile after you make a turn that goes straight in past Tilford into Ventnor. And we've had a speed gun out there a couple of times. We've clocked people at 50 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour. Now, over the years, the VSO weren't in the village, but they are now because we spent $330,000 on signage and walkways. And I'm not saying it didn't help. What it did do is it put up more stop signs that people just drive through. Now, I know there's been a lot of tickets written on, I don't know the exact number, but I know that in the last meeting, I don't know if it was captain of VSO was here, and he talked about 9,000 tickets in Deerfield Beach last year, and almost 16,000 or more this year. Well, I spoke with a few officers who do patrol, not a lot, but they do patrol the interness of Century Village. And I asked them about speeders. And 3 people that I did talk to, officers, they said, yeah, we've warned a lot of people. Well, warning warning is a warning, but we've published for the last 5 years in the Reporter, which is a paper that goes out once a month in the village.
Would you like one more minute?
Yes, please.
You might want to get to your.
Yeah, but, and, you know, it's time to start passing out tickets. Today, friends of mine were leaving, they were here for a few weeks in New York. And we were standing on the side, and they were putting their luggage into their car, they were leaving. And someone would buy us about 50 miles an hour. I mean, it was crazy, after rolling through the stop sign. So I think it's time for more tickets, especially in areas where it's 15 miles an hour. It's horrendous, and I could go on and on and on, because I see it every day, and I think we need some help. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael Lombardi, have your hand raised?
Good evening, city officials, and Happy New Year. My name is Michael Lombardi. I live at 431 Southeast 3rd Place in Deerfield Beach. I'd just like to echo what the previous gentleman stated about speeders. The neighborhood that I live in has some streets that have speed bumps on it and some streets that don't, that don't. My street is one of them. I do notice an increased number of cars that do speed excessively through these neighborhoods that have small children in them. And I know that there's small children in there because many houses have those little green kid signs that have the little red flags that stick out to indicate that there's children around. I'm a new parent myself, and I do have a similar concern of speeders in this neighborhood. So I'd like to speak with somebody from city staff or a representative and go over. I noticed that there's new speed bumps that get put in other areas. And I'm just wondering if I could meet with somebody from city staff or a representative to discuss this matter in more detail, because I don't think 3 minutes with an extension of 1 minute is plenty of time to adequately speak on it. So thank you.
We'll have someone send you a message. We want to make sure we get your contact information.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public care to speak? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Paula Cook, and I live at 62 Centennial Court in Deerfield Beach.
Bring the mic down, please.
Okay. My question is, I was reading in the Pelican that our districts were changed. Were they? Or was that my mistaken? They were 1, 2, 3, 4 were all different.
We'll give you an answer when you're done speaking. Yeah, there was a recent county commission change, but each few years when there's election that comes up, that's when the districts change.
Okay, because I was just wondering if they, what they would do to our precincts, our county precincts. It's not going to matter at all.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else from the public? I'm going to go ahead and close it to the public. Commissioner Parnas, do you want to comment?
Yes, Billy, you have private streets on Tilton. You can get 50% the unit owners, sign a form with the city and ask for speed bumps. City can't put it on private roads, but they can help you with the company that puts them in for the city. And there's nothing wrong with your putting in speed bumps. They make them today, let me finish, so that fire trucks and ambulances don't have to slow down, but cars do. So the impediment of fire trucks and ambulances slowing down to get people in an emergency doesn't exist anymore. So if you get together with an assistant manager with me, get the ball rolling, you need 50% of the unit owners that are in the affected area to sign a form that they want speed bump. And it can be done.
Thank you, Commissioner. And to Mr. Lombardi's point, certainly we will have staff reach out to you to make sure we can inform you on how to get the ball rolling in your neighborhood to get the speed tables. And there is a process to go through, but certainly it's something that the city believes in, and when the residents request it. And it does take, there is a process that has to be the majority of the residents over there in that area. But if they're on board, we go ahead and put those in place on the public roads. But with those statements, if city manager can direct BSO to increase some of the traffic controls like we've done in other areas, because this isn't unique to just your area. Unfortunately, it seems to be universal and not just in Broward County, but Dade, Miami-Dade, and certainly Palm Beach, because I think people just think it's now that they're free and released to go out of their quarantine, they seem to be trying to rush to get everywhere they are. It's a very dangerous situation. Thank you.
We are now on consent board appointments. There are 2 listed on the agenda, items number 7 and 8.
Is there anyone that care to comment on items 7 or 8? Anyone from the public? We'll go ahead and close it to the public then, commission.
Motion to approve.
We're gonna do 7 and 8. If anyone, any polls for 7 or 8? Can we do it all together?
You can do it together. Yeah.
Any polls for 7 or 8?
No.
Okay. So you're making a motion for items 7 and 8 approval?
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Parnas, seconded by Vice President Preston. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
We are now on consent portion of the agenda for agreements and expenditure requests. And I know there are some polls. I'm going to request that item number 12 be pulled because it's a grant exceeding $20,000, which needs a public hearing. So we can have the public comment on that. The manager has a couple.
So we're pulling 12, and I know we're doing 13 and 14 discussion. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct. Is there anyone from the public who care to comment on items number 9, 10, or 11 by show of hands in the audience? Anyone online? 9, 10, or 11? Okay, which item would you like to speak on, sir?
Number 10.
Please come on up. City Attorney, you want to read 10? You want to read out of order? Have them speak down.
How do you prefer to do it, Mayor? You want to do 9 and 11 first?
Commissioner, are you okay with doing 9 and 11 individually right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do 9 and 11. We'll come back to 10 for the public comment. We'll move forward from there. Do you need to read them, City Attorney?
I don't, but I can. Numbers 9 and 11. So that will be the consent portion of the agenda that you would be approving as a slate. It's really just numbers 9 and 11.
Okay, 9 and 11. Commissioner, any comments on 9 or 11? Not seeing any and not having any public comment, we'll go ahead and looking for a motion for items 9 and 11.
Motion to approve.
9 and 11.
We have a motion from Commissioner Parnas, seconded by Commissioner Hudak. Your roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
Yes.
Chair Gant.
Yes.
Item number 10 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving an agreement with the Urban Land Institute Southeast Florida Caribbean District Council for a technical assistance panel to conduct comparisons of potential commuter rail station locations, authorizing execution of the agreement in an amount not to exceed $25,000, providing for an effective date.
Evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioner. My name is Dave Marias. I'm with the Deerfield Beach Economic Development Council. We are at 10 Fairway Drive here at Deerfield Beach. I just wanted to speak how in favor we are of this leadership role that the commission is taking. This may seem unrelated, but back at our summit, before we attended, the mayor spoke about the consensus building, the successes that the city has had, particularly within the project of Southwest 10th Street extension, the Sawgrass Expressway. And in and of itself, this study could be a catalytic change maker for Pioneer Grove. But more importantly, it gives this body an opportunity to take a leadership role in the broader discussion about whether the county is going to get an East Coast commuter railway that would support the affordable housing that everybody in the county is proposing. If you're going to put workforce housing in Deerfield Beach or the Dixie Corridor, you need to get those workers to where they need to be. And we have plenty of our, I attended the meeting in Fort Lauderdale today. The battle lines are already being drawn on infrastructure improvements to get across the New River, and that there are people around those communities out west that want affordable housing here in the east, but they don't want to pay for the infrastructure. There are trade associations that want to see Plan A. There is an option not to build, and this could be delayed, but I think the city's leadership role in taking a look at this now on what the bright future could be in the city and the county should be commended, and I certainly hope that the constituency here in the city appreciate the leadership role you're taking by this. Very much in favor of this.
Thank you, Mr. Marin. Is there anyone else from the public care to comment on this item? Commissioner Parnas?
I approve of this for the following reason. Major cities, our county is like a major city like Chicago and New York. You take it in its entirety, is burdened with traffic that's unbearable. Yet we keep widening roads and adding more and more cars as the population grows. Public transportation that's inexpensive and functioning is not a for-profit operation, but a service for the communities. Florida lacks good public transportation. This is an opportunity for us to be in the forefront, setting up a station in a commuter rail line that'll benefit the city and the county and the two counties to the south and the north. That's why I approve, because it's the future. There's no more space to build roads. And yet more and more people move to Florida. How are we going to get them from point A to point B unless we look at the future and say public transportation? You look at every major city in the United States, they have good public transportation. When I was a boy, we could drive into Manhattan. Most of the people I know now from New York no longer own cars that live in Manhattan because of the good public transportation. That's the future, not adding more cars to the roads till it bursts. So I think this is an important item to approve.
I'm going to close it to the public because I didn't see more for the public. Is that a motion you'd like to make, Commissioner Parnas?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion from Commissioner Parnas.
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Preston. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky. Commissioner Drosky.
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak.
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston.
Yes.
Mayor Dance.
Yes.
Item number 12 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving a $35,000 grant to the DPR Youth Enrichment Association for Academics and Athletics, Inc. to support the Packer Rounders youth football, cheerleading, and academic support programs, providing for execution, severability, and an effective date.
Commission.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, if you don't mind holding that, I'm going to open to the public. That's okay. Anyone from the public care to comment on this item? Not seeing any online. Anyone right there? We'll close it to the public. We have a motion by Vice Mayor Preston.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Hudak. Excuse me, Commissioner Hudak, you just put your hand up.
I know.
Commissioner Parnas, did you want to comment, Commissioner Hudak?
I did.
Vote. Go right ahead.
Thank you very much. When we brought the Packer Rattlers back, and we provided them funds, one of the things that we stipulated was their ability to show us their books, make sure that the spending is going in the right direction. And I just want to make sure that they have fulfilled that obligation again this year.
Mr. Santucci, can you comment on that?
Commissioner Deck, I apologize. It's a little hard to hear you through the Zoom.
I'm sorry. When we originally approved to give funds to the Packer Rattlers, one of the stipulations was that they open up their books and we were able to see and make sure that those funds were going where we expected. So I just want to make sure that they are once again in compliance with those stipulations.
They are, Commissioner.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a motion in the second. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Clematis,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
Yes.
Mayor Gantz.
Yes.
Item number 13 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the ranking and award of request for qualifications number 22-05-PC for the Pioneer Grove Infrastructure Improvements, Pedestrian Lighting, and Complete Streets Project for the top ranked responsive and responsible proposer, Kimley Horton Associates, Inc., authorizing the city manager to negotiate an agreement with Kimley Horton Associates, Inc., and providing for an effective date.
Mayor, City Commission, if it would be okay, and because these were on consent, if we could do the presentations from the same firm, same department, back to back for not only Pioneer Grove improvements, but FAU Research Boulevard. And the reason why we want to do the presentations in that way, so we can not only show you the projects themselves, but one of the important things I think that the City Commission needs to be aware of is some of the background on the funding as it relates to the surtax, where those funding numbers came from, and where we are today with the county in relation to the costs. I know Mr. Soroka also has some additional. Did you?
No, I was just going to mention if we're going to present them together, I was going to read the title for item number 14 too, but we will need separate votes on both of those. Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and do that unless you have anything more, Mr. Manager. Okay. Item number 14 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the ranking and award of request for qualification number 22-04-PC for the FAU Research Boulevard Southwest 11th Way Improvements Project with the top ranked responsive and responsible proposer, Kimley Horton Associates, Inc., authorizing the city manager to negotiate an agreement with Kimley Horton Associates, Inc., and providing for an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Felicity Gallant, Director for Environmental Services. Tonight I'm here with representatives from Kimley Horton Associates. They were the top ranked offer for both of these projects. I wanted you all to have an opportunity to see the proposals that they presented to the evaluation committee, see the quality of the work and their methodology and approach to these projects, which I really thought was very innovative. We do want to remind you these are surtax funded projects, so we are beholden to an IOA that was executed between the city and the county. That does make us responsible for only eligible items with the county surtax funding. That would include any roadway and drainage items and lighting, any kind of decorative items that the city would desire, or decorative features such as landscaping would be exclusions of this project funded through surtax. So any of those things that the city desires to do in excess of the surtax funded items, we would have to fund separately. So again, tonight, what we're here to discuss is really the ranking of the evaluation committee of the first ranked offer, show you their proposals, their methodology and approach to this project, and seek your consent in their ranking. We hope in February to bring forward the proposal for contract execution for those surtax eligible items. And at that point, we'll discuss those ineligible items, such as decorative components, any water and sewer improvements that we need to make underground in conjunction with these roadway improvements, and sources of funding for those additional improvements. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan, who is our project manager for the first project presented tonight, which is our Pioneer Grove Infrastructure Improvements. and I'll turn it over to him. So,
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. My name is Jonathan Haig. I'm a landscape architect with Kimley Warren and Associates. How do I ask?
just ask the clerk to advance.
Okay, advance, please. So I'm going to be the project manager for this project. I have more than 26 years experience. The basis of my practice at Kimley Warren is serving municipal clients. You'll see that in some of the resume and items that I have in this presentation a little bit later. And I've been a leader of numerous complex projects. Next slide. So this is an impossible list to read and list out. This is just some of the streetscape projects that our firm has completed. Most of these in South Florida, a lot of these in Broward County and Palm Beach County. Next slide. Including one project in particular that had a lot of the features that I think the city had asked for us to look at for this corridor project. This is Clematis Street in downtown West Palm Beach, a project that I was the design lead for and the project manager for. This was a multiple phase project, a lot different than what the majority of Second will be for this project. But I think the downtown area could resemble a little bit the look and feel of this project because of its more urban nature. Some of the things that we did for Clematis Street included permeable paver bioswales, which is something that I think the city is looking for with this project. It's very pedestrian centric. We widened sidewalks quite a bit for it. We have configurable on-street dining. You'll see the bollards in this picture are actually retractable in the parking spaces where we can create a parking space for a dining experience depending on where what's happening that time of day. Next slide. So some of the city's goals for this project, again, lighting design is enhancing lighting and the look and feel, the safety along the street, the walkability of the corridor, enhancing the Pioneer Grove design standards. So understanding that there's a look and feel that we really want to establish here to make sure that the district is established and reflecting the historic legacy of the area. We want to make sure we look at drainage design. I mentioned permeable pavers earlier. We're going to be looking at bioswales also built into the urban streetscape as well. And of course, there's utility improvements that will be associated with this project. Next slide. So some of the challenges that we saw with this corridor are the overhead utilities that limit the types of trees that we can put along the streetscape. Having large canopy trees is important to provide shade along the street, but in some areas we may not be able to do that. The utility pole placement is actually limits some of the optimal sidewalk placement. The existing drainage infrastructure is kind of in the way of also where sidewalk widening might occur, so we'll need to modify some of that. And then looking at the plan for future development along this corridor, how do we accommodate that through our the creative design? And then of course, safe pedestrian connectivity throughout. Next slide. So looking at the north end of this side, is that area that I talked about is a little more urban, has more of the commercial uses associated with it. This is between Northeast First and Southeast Second Street. We have a 50-foot right-of-way for a portion of it, a 70-foot right-of-way south of Hillsborough Boulevard. Looking to do a lot of permeable pavement, parallel parking, very similar to what we did on Clematis Street. We've got urban bioswale opportunities, which might take the form of a curb cut and a bulb out around the parking space, or it might actually be a depressed area associated with a tree pit at the roadside as well. Again, looking at the dining flexibility, we're looking at what kind of future uses might come along here. And I think the design standards for that Pioneer Grove Village really would establish a different kind of pattern along this street, development pattern that might set better or or better accept the on-street dining opportunities. Next slide. So we took a look at what some before and after might look like along the street. This is the before image looking north. And next slide. And this is what it could look like, adding in some of those design features that we're talking about for this project, the enhanced lighting, the permeable pavers in the roadway, in the parking lane, some bioswales where the bulb outs are. You see the grass or the wildflower looking areas along the roadside. And then repeating some of the design flavor that's already been established in the downtown with some of the paver patterns that are along the sides of the street as well. Next slide. And then this is a section of what we thought that could look like. Again, this kind of preliminary look, but showing, you can see where the permeable pavers are underneath the parking strips and where we could establish in depressed areas at the roadside where we could do the bioswales as well. Next slide. So this is Southeast 2nd Street, also including Southeast 4th Street, all the way to Southeast 10th. So there's a lot of different opportunities here, but I think the main focus of this area is going to enhancing the mobility of this area and trying to do some little bit of traffic calming as well. Next slide. So we took a look at a couple of different before and after images here. This is the intersection at 2nd and 4th. I think there's an opportunity here, next slide, to do a what's called a traffic calming style of roundabout. This is a more of a diverter around the intersection, more or less. It would provide where the wheels of actually the car could actually mount the inner ring of that favored area and allow larger vehicles to maneuver through and emergency vehicles to maneuver through a little faster. But it causes people to slow down as they go through that intersection. Next slide. This is another image. This is just south of that area along the Southeast 2nd. Next image. And again, adding some of that, the roadside on-street parking in some areas, creating those the widened pathways along both sides of the road, and enhancing the streetscape with trees and bioswales. I think it's going to really bring a unique look to the area and hopefully spur some new types of development in the area as well. Next slide. I think that's the end of. No, we've got one more exit. This is the section that we did for that same area. Again, it shows the permeable pavers in the parking lane. Some of the ideas we might have bioswales at the roadside. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next presentation we have is a very different kind of project. It's a capacity improvement project. And this is for FAU Research Park Boulevard. The limits for FAU Research Park Boulevard would be north of 48th Street to 10th Street. And the intent here is to add capacity. So what we're looking to do is take a 2-lane road and make it into a 4-lane road with a divided center median. And so we have the next presenter is going to show the approach to that project.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, thank you. My name is Arthur Strunico, and I'm with Human Hornet Associates now working on the project. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background about Human Hornet. We've been established about 5 years ago in Florida. We have about 1,000 people, employees in Florida. So we have great depth of resources available for full projects. We have invested in senior owners. Dedicated to serve the city of Deerfield for best interest. And finally, we have local presence here in Ray Beach, we're in West Palm Beach, as well as Miami-Dade. Next slide, please. So some of the key staff, myself, Arthur Strunico, the Deputy Project Manager, Phantom, Landscaping Architect, and here are some of the faces they might who will be part of the team. Next slide, please. So, project overview. The segment of FAU Research Park Boulevard is the one that's shown in blue, and it's essentially a missing link because segment 3, which goes from Sample Road to northeast 48th Street, has recently been constructed, as well as segment 1 that goes from southwest 10th Street to West Boulevard also has been constructed in the past. So essentially today, as it is a 2-lane road, it is a bottleneck between those projects that have been constructed with 4 lanes in each direction. Next slide, please. So what will be included in the scope of services for this project is roadway design for widening the road up to 4 lanes. There will be drainage design, there will be environmental permitting involvement, utility design, traffic control plans, and lighting and landscape. Next slide. So here's a typical section that we developed when working on the project and how we saw it from the beginning. We will be proposing a phase median in the middle, so that provides some opportunities for potential landscaping where place some trees or shrubs, as well as continuous bike lanes and sidewalks on both east and west sides, which currently are not there today, but is continued. And we'll be providing them throughout the project.
Excuse me, sir. Could you speak a little louder or put on the free trees?
I remove the message. I'll try again.
Much better.
Sorry about that. Next slide, please. So this is another typical section that we evaluated for the project. It happens to be in the northern portion of the project, and the only difference here is we no longer have the opportunity to provide larger plantings in the median, just because of the side distance issues, which is this is where the drivers are able to see when the cars are making a turn into adjacent businesses. So everything else stays pretty much the same. Next slide, please. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to provide some innovation in this corridor. There is 2 schools and there is residential communities that are by the road. So we said, how can we make this more innovative and safer? And what we came up with is instead of having the bike lane adjacent to the travel lanes where the vehicles will drive, we propose a separated bike lanes, which will be behind the curb, separated by a landscaping strip. And then again, separated from the sidewalk where the pedestrians would walk by a smaller planting area. So that will provide more of a character to the area and enhance pedestrian and bicycle safety. Next slide, please.
All the designs that I've seen between the 2 of you, why isn't the lighting underground?
Commissioner Parks, can you say all the questions?
You just asked if I have questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll wait.
If it's okay, we can say all of them very, that's all right.
Sure.
Yes, please.
Sorry.
So here we show the map of a few critical locations that we've identified during the pursuit of this project. We will not go through details on all of them, just focus on a couple. We have stakeholders also identified on this map, and we have Highlands Christian Academy, Deerfield Beach High School, Praxis Assisted Living, Wood Spring Suites, Cracker Bar, and others. So next slide, please. So the first critical location that we wanted to present our approach at, it happens to be in front of the 2 schools. Today, the crossing is not designated and it doesn't have any pavement markings or signage at the approach. So what we propose to do here is install a signal that will flash every time pedestrian approaches and presses the push button that will alert the driver of oncoming pedestrian. And we'll stop that. And we will include obviously all the associated signage and pavement markings that will go with that. Next slide, please. So another location that we evaluated is FAU Research Boulevard intersection with Southwest 15th Street. So based on our conversations with the engineering department, there is a possibility of proposing a roundabout at this intersection. So we preliminary designed a roundabout that would meet all the governing criteria. However, there are some impacts that would be associated with this design, and we'll need to get into a little bit more details once we get into the actual engineering part of it. Next slide, please. Lastly, one of the aesthetics features we can't forget about the character of this corridor is the sign at the entrance that we are looking now in the southbound direction along a very research Boulevard on Southwest 10th Street. And this is an aesthetic feature that could be proposed as part of this project. Next slide, please. So we've done a few projects that are similar that have streetscaping, bicycle, pedestrian capacity improvements. Some of them are shown here. First one is Walls Road, which is in Broward County. Again, it was one of those projects where we had widening pedestrian facilities and bike lanes that we were adding to the road. Next slide, please. Another interesting one that we've done in the past is Venetian Causeway in Miami. It's a pretty unique corridor as it crosses the bay, and same thing here. We've added bike lanes, pedestrian facilities, and landscaping for our project area. Next slide, please. And lastly, the streetscaping projects for the city of Naples. Central Avenue. This project actually had 2 roundabouts that were designed. Similarly, bike and pedestrian facilities were upgraded. They were separated from the roadway, and aesthetics features were added to the corridor. Next slide, please. Any questions?
Commissioner, do we have any questions for each one? I know Commissioner Parnas, you do, and Commissioner Preston as well.
In the designs I've seen, we're talking about the future. Why is the lighting, why do I see wires strung that a hurricane can knock down, causing death, injury, loss of light, instead of putting them underground?
So we are fairly limited on budget. We are limited on budget.
You take your mask off. That's all right.
Yes.
All right, Mike, it's okay.
Yeah. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir. We can give her 6 feet. That would be great. Mask off.
Okay, thank you. We are limited on budget, and that would be a local cost to us. Current estimates for undergrounding overhead power lines are $1 million a mile. So, and that was an estimate as of like maybe 5 years ago. I'm sure the costs have only increased as of late. But what I can tell you is that if it's the city's desire to do that, we would need to appropriate the funding for that. Surtax does not cover undergrounding overhead utilities. So that would definitely be a local cost, and we would need to prioritize that amongst all the other priorities the city has. That again, there are a lot of items that are not eligible under the surtax program, such as the decorative features, pavers, the landscaping, anything that is beyond what you would typically see on any standard issue roadway. Anything above and beyond that would be at the local municipality's cost.
Forgive me, but to me, we're talking about the future. We have to cut the project down a little bit to do it right the first time, fine. But to do it, to say, well, budget, so we're gonna put old-fashioned wiring up there. And the first hurricane comes along and people have no lights, their electric is out, to me is wrong.
And I will say it's been hard. All the poles on Southeast 2nd Avenue have recently been hardened by FPL. They put in much more robust poles than were there previously.
I'm worried about the pole going down. I'm worried about the wires going down. I've been on Hillsborough Boulevard during a hurricane when poles were snapped, wires were laying on the ground, sparks all over the place, and we were out of electricity for about 10 days.
Yeah, I mean, we can
And if we're
certainly
gonna build a
secure.
project, I don't want that repeated.
We can secure the pricing from FPL for that, but that would be an additional cost to the city.
Like I said, if we're gonna do it, let's do it right. If we have to do half the project at a time, in terms of length, fine. But let's do it so it's gonna last 30 years and not have the problems that are caused by wiring overhead.
Commissioner Parnas, the project as presented in the surtax plan, the scope of work, so the segment of the roadway which we are looking to reconstruct, is what the county is going to be expecting us to deliver. Of course, when we talk about some of the additional, and I'll just call them bells and whistles that we think would enhance the project in the area, that's going to be at a city cost, of course, but at a minimum, the county is going to be expecting us to complete, at a minimum, the segment of roadway in which we presented to them. And given the fact that when we talk about FAU Research Boulevard, you really can't split that project up. You have to look at it from segment to segment or intersection to intersection. In the case of Pioneer Grove, that is something, again, that we could certainly look to FP&L to provide a cost. I will tell you as it is, the amount of surtax funding that we're receiving for these projects were estimates provided back in the mid 2010s. And we know what construction costs have happened since then. So, the concern that we currently have on both of these projects is that the surtax funding that will be available to us for the construction phase will not fully support even the eligible items within these surtax projects. So those are going to be conversations that that we're going to need to have with the City Commission once we understand those costs. And even as Ms. Sejelnik alluded to as well, with the design costs as well, when we talk about some of the ineligible design costs as well, which are not as much as, of course, the construction portion. But nonetheless, we could ask FP&L for cost estimates on those, but I do caution you and the rest of the commission that even the roadway construction project will not be fully funded by the surtax as it is designed, and perhaps even under what would be eligible for these projects as well, because of the outdated cost estimates that we would like for the county to make reference to, but and acknowledge at least, so that we can hopefully fund these as they were intending these projects to be completed, and relying on the municipalities to get some of this money spent down. But I can't really be confident in that. And just as a gauge for you, the S-curve undergrounding project is 2.3 million.
Just for that little section.
Just for that little section.
Yeah. Commissioner Hudak?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This question is for city staff. I did not see a slide that showed the vision for sample to 44th Street. Now, last month, we did this Be Tactical program where the goal is to reduce the speed limit. We clocked a car going 99 miles an hour in that area there. We had residents out there, myself and other members of the commission were out there painting the roadways, putting up these this landscaping to control the speed. How is this project going to dovetail with that to make sure that the vision stays the same?
Yeah, so that segment is a slightly different character. And that project, we did some temporary improvements. The intent there is that we fund the permanent improvements, which we've applied for grants through the Complete Streets Initiative program. So that's the hope, is that we receive some funding in the next 5 years to make those temporary improvements permanent improvements. The character of that corridor is a little different. It's far more residential. The character of this corridor between 10th and 48th is very commercial, with hotels and restaurants and businesses. So here we are looking at a capacity improvement and access to local businesses and commercial and industrial properties.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Preston?
Thank you, Mayor. In the presentation that you just gave, Did you address the safety issue at Buck Pride Way and 11th Drive? There needs to be a light there.
That's the roundabout, the roundabout location, the traffic calming roundabout location. So we have been unable to meet a warrant for a traffic signal. So in the absence of being able to do a traffic signal, we look at other opportunities for traffic calming. And what's available to us would be something like a roundabout. So that was, I think that was proposed on a slide. Do you know what slide number that might have been? Yeah, Heather, I don't know if you have access to that slide for it's Southwest 15th Street and Southwest 11th Way.
I think it's slide 6.
Slide 6, thank you.
So what was the reasoning for us not to be able to get a light there?
So you need to meet a warrant for a traffic signal. And our capacity, our traffic has never met warrant for a signal. So we can install a signal, but the other options available to us would be something like a roundabout. Sorry, it was FAU Research Park Boulevard. And this is just a very preliminary level design that just shows, what the options would be with the.
It's actually further down on the sorry. Maybe more 9 or 10. It's 11.
Yeah, there you are. So that's what we're exploring. But there would be some impacts to a city lift station at that location. So that's something that we'll have to evaluate and see the viability of relocating lift station. That's something that's able to be done. But the other things that we're going to look at is, diameters for those roundabouts. Because this is as per, minimum ASHTO, I assume. So, we'll look at the viability, maybe seeing what can be done if any flexibility in that area.
Thank you.
Commissioner Drosky.
Thank you, Mayor. I fully am aware that the funding for items 13 and 14 is nowhere near what we need to complete these projects. Just by way of example, number 14, we're getting $480,000, and the construction cost estimated in 2016 was over $4 million. So clearly, 1 + 2 is not equaling 3 in this equation, because that $4 million is likely much higher now than it was back in 2016. However, why it's so important that we approve these two tonight is to keep us in the mix with the surtax dollars going forward. I don't know if this was said earlier during any of the presentations, being remote, it's hard to hear sometimes. But, this is cycle 1 of the surtax dollars from the MPO, and a lot of cities are behind us and have not presented their projects or received funding from the MPO yet. So for us to get dollars in cycle 1, even though they're far short of what we need to fully implement these projects, is still very important, because it puts us in line for cycle 2 dollars. Because it's just like when we go to the state and we ask the state for funds for funding our projects here in the city, the first thing the state asks is, have you received funding before? And so that's why we get funding every year for our Alzheimer's centers, because we've received it on a continual basis for at least the last decade. So by getting in line with the MPO and getting these dollars, even though they're far short, is extremely important. And that's why we need to support numbers 13 and 14 tonight, in my opinion. The comment that I have, and it's not a question, it's a comment. And I told the city manager I was going to bring this up tonight. There was a slide that actually shows what I was going to say, that this road for item number 14, that this is a segmented road. You have from Sample to 48th is called Southwest 11th Way. From 48th to Southwest 10th Street, it's FAU Research Park Boulevard. And then from 10th Street to Hillsborough Boulevard, it's Natura Boulevard. So you've got 3 different names for the same roadway there. I would just ask, it would be my request to ask staff to at least vet, renaming all 3 segments to one name. And we can kind of bring some branding to that avenue and bring some prominence to it going forward. And like, this is, whatever you want to call it. Like in Fort Lauderdale, you have Las Olas Boulevard. And as soon as you say Las Olas, everybody knows what you're talking about. And you know the stretch in Fort Lauderdale when you say that. And maybe this is something that we can brand and bring to Deerfield Beach with that corridor. It's an underutilized corridor, especially between 48th and Southwest 10th Street, which is only going to get more developed and bigger along the way. So it's something that I would just ask that staff take a look at and vet the pluses and minuses. I fully understand there's a lot of minuses to what I'm suggesting. For example, the major minus would be the stretch between Sample and 48 because you have residential in there. And if we were to name it, let's just say, just for example, and I'm not suggesting this, it's just for discussion purposes, if the entire stretch were to be called FAU Research Park Boulevard, so the stretch from Sample Road to 48, those residences would lose the Southwest 11th Way designation. So you'd have address changes, you'd have delivery, possibly complications, especially in the residential section. So I know there's complications to what I'm saying, but I think it at least deserves a look at. If we're going to spend the time and the dollars improving this corridor, which vastly needs it, let's think of a way to kind of brand that entire stretch from Sample to Hillsborough Boulevard and bring some prominence to Deerfield Beach with that. So I just ask that it just be vetted and brought up for future discussion.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to open this to the public. I see Gwen Clark Reedy have her hand raised.
Good evening, Mayor. Happy New Year to all of you. Gwen Clark Reed, 1430 Southwest 6th Way, Deerfield Beach. My concern, I heard Vice Mayor Preston bring it up about the light at 15th and 3rd. That has been a problem for a long time, and we have been talking about the need of a street light at that intersection. I know that you're talking about a roundabout, but it's not practical, in my opinion, to put a roundabout there. What it needs is a traffic signal. And I think we've had talk about the number of accidents that have happened at that intersection, and being right at the high school. We were told before, yes, that we could get a traffic signal there. So I don't know what the discrepancy is now. You're talking about putting a roundabout. And also, how is this going to affect the flow into Mayo Howard Park? We don't have enough space for parking in there now. And is this going to take away more space from the parking at the park? I would like to know about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who care to comment on this item? Yes, sir.
How you doing? Joe Chansey, 4250 Northeast 4th Avenue, Deerfield Beach, Florida. 2 things. One, as Commissioner Hodak and I have discussed, flow of I guess you guys call it segment 3. Is that segment 3 from Sample 48? They recently did some, I guess, temporary improvement, which mixed reviews. A lot of people hate it. Some people don't care for it. Others, see where it goes. The flow from the residential section, I guess you could call it, to 48 to 10th Street. We're speaking about opening it up to a 4-lane highway. that's obviously going to impact the residential because of the majority of the traffic comes from the residential area to 10th Street. Very seldom traffic coming from east-west on 48 goes right. So the north-south corridor is always going to be a major. And the other thing to consider, if 95 screws up, that's the bypass. You know, either military or Third Ave. Most, I say 80% of people like to go Third Ave. Now, once you get to 48 and open it up to a 4-lane highway, okay, the same issue that it was before for Third Ave, sample to 48, there's traffic light on one side. So I don't think I've seen anything showing the traffic light on both sides. And if there is, I didn't see it. That's an issue. Now, again, alluding to Vice Mayor on Deerfield, is it Deerfield Private? Private. So I understand that, you know, may not be sufficient warrant to show traffic now, but you have to account once you get a 4-lane highway, it's coming right in traffic. So it's like, okay, well, it doesn't have a warrant now, but as soon as it's a 4-lane highway, traffic's gonna be there. It's just gonna show up overnight. So that in itself, in my opinion, should show that, okay, a traffic study should be done or account for the 4-lane highway. Right now it's a 2-lane or 3-lane because of the turn lane. So I personally feel that with the high school there and the improvement, and we all know people drive what we call South Florida speed. And we have high schoolers walking that they don't sometimes obey traffic crosswalks. So in my opinion, I think that needs to be concerning. It's concerning and need to be considered on this whole design that we all doing. But more importantly, the roundabout, you're talking about, and that's just north of emergency vehicles. So that's gonna be another issue. And I'm pretty sure that they're gonna have something to consider, take into account, depending on traffic flow, et cetera. So, you know, that's kind of my still or 3 minutes and a half of fame. So need that to be addressed.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? We'll go ahead and close it to the public then. It sounds like the design for that section along that FAU Research Park area is going to be similar to what you have further north along Nature up there, where you have a median on the inside. It separates the 2 lanes of traffic. You have a sidewalk which is pretty far away from the actual vehicular traffic. I think it's important for everybody to know that it's not the city's decision not to put a light there. It's not our call. You had asked for it to be put in there, and they're telling us it doesn't warrant it. And that is a situation we have in many locations. I know District 3, District 4, many locations we have the same thing, in which certainly based on traffic accidents and what we have, even turning a turn light on in areas that we feel it's warranted, but we don't have the ability to make that decision, unfortunately. And whatever was decided in the past, I don't know why action wasn't taken at that opportunity to do it. If it was granted in the past, but certainly not granted now, and that seems to be a bit of an issue with not having the ability to be able to do that. This roundabout might be a solution for that. And I will say, I don't think it's going to have any impact on Mayo Howard Park as far as taking away any land there based on what was presented. As far as the parking, that would be a separate issue. This is just really the road that's going in front of it. There is limited funding that we're getting here. This is one of the earlier projects we put in when we were trying to, with the very strict rules and the ridiculous rules, quite frankly, the county put in place for us, was to make sure we could at least get something on the books to get ahead of other cities so we could capture that funding. They didn't allow us to go back and make revisions to the project. We had to submit what we had back, how many years ago now?
More than 5, 2016.
2016, this was approved. So this goes back to plans that we put in way back then. Our ability to adjust it is simply taken away from, it's taken out of our hands. We don't have the ability to do that. The county is limiting. We have to take what we can. This is our chance to get money that will go to another city if we don't capture this money now to go towards a project. So understanding there are some limitations to this that are unfortunate and frustrating, but it is a unique opportunity that we shouldn't waste on. And I'm certainly not going to break up the project to look for some enhancements that are nice to haves when there are a few things that are must haves. So I am in support of this, and I appreciate the presentations that were made, kind of giving everybody an understanding of what's there. Keep in mind, as this project moves forward, most of that funding is going to have to start coming from the city, I would imagine, unless there's other opportunities out there. With that, when that funding comes that way, we might have the ability to make some enhancements and changes that will meet the needs of what we need here now, as opposed to what was presented back 5 years ago. But we have to make sure we can capture this funding while we can. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor. And of course, we'll look for other alternative fundings that are coming down from the federal government to help support some of this and offset this cost as well.
But I think all the points that were brought up are well taken. But I think it is rare, especially a lot of these projects, when you see streets being taken away. It's a rare opportunity to expand and make it safer, believe it or not, by expanding. This is one of the few opportunities that I've seen to be able to do that. I think that's what this has the opportunity to do, at least in some of the stretches. Commission looking for a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Barnes, second by Vice Mayor Preston.
Mayor, sorry to interrupt. Just want to make sure we're clear. Commissioner Parnas, your motion was for item number 13, correct?
Correct.
All right, and that is the pedestrian lighting Pioneer Grove item. And your second, Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, Mayor.
We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes?
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
Yes.
Mayor Dan.
Yes.
Okay, now item number 14 is the FAU Research Park Boulevard project.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Preston, second by Commissioner Parnas. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
Yes.
Mayor Dan.
Yes.
Item number 15 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, approving the ranking and award of request for proposals number 21-35-PC for the aquatics facility renovations, Deerfield Beach Middle School, authorizing execution of an agreement with the top-ranked, responsive, and responsible contractor, Recreational Design and Construction, Inc., for the renovations in an amount not to exceed $1,621,400, providing for implementation and an effective date.
I see that $898,000 of this is coming from the American Rescue Plan.
That's correct, Mayor. So this is above the estimate of what we had in the ARP. So we always talk about, these projects as they come in, some will take from some will have to come from others. We'll make adjustments as we go. So this is one of those projects that we, I think we estimated in ARP, if not mistaken, 750,000. So this was well above that.
Yes. Anyone in commission, any comments for the public? Anyone from the public here to comment on this item? Not seeing any, I'll close it to the public. Commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Parnas, second by Commissioner Hudak. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes?
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston,
Yes.
Mayor Dan.
Yes.
Item number 16 is an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 22 Cemeteries of the City Code of Ordinances to revise and update the cemetery provisions, providing for codification, severability, conflicts, and an effective date. This is first reading.
Commission, I have Ms. Renard, who has a presentation for this item.
And Commission, my understanding is Mr. Bernard's going to be speaking on the cemetery fee item as well, which is item number 17. So I'm just going to read that title into the record as she makes her way up. Number 17 is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Deerfield Beach, Florida, adopting the amended schedule of fees and charges for Pine View Cemetery and Deerfield Beach Memorial Cemetery, providing for conflicts, implementation, and effective date.
Thank you, Commissioners, Mayor. The first ordinance, the first reading of the first ordinance is kind of cleaning up language that hasn't been adjusted in the code ordinances since 1979. For instance, there is a cemetery commission, which is also this commission. So the idea that you would have to have a cemetery commission that in the language then is this commission. The concept is just to go directly to this commission, which is what the cemetery commission is. The other thing is there were 3 separate funding mechanisms that were very complicated and quite honestly difficult to track. What we're asking is to streamline that. There are really 2 funding sources. One is the plot, the plot fee and the perpetual care. Those fees that we will collect will go into the perpetual care fund. And then anything beyond that, which is usually burial services and overtime, which are currently now general fund expenses, would go into the general fund cemetery account. And that would, so we're going from 3 funds to 2 with the same purposes, with the same, the perpetual care fund will still be an investment fund, but it makes it a lot less complicated. $3 per square foot here and there. I think, Anthony, did I get all the main changes there?
I think you did with respect to the ordinance, and one of the keys that you touched on at the end there is previously it had, that's $3 per square foot of the amount that was received for purchases of burial plots and services. Just keep in mind that number was in your code, and it's been there since 1979 and hasn't been updated. So you can imagine probably that's no longer adequate to cover the perpetual care.
So that's the first reading on the ordinance to streamline that. Doesn't affect the fees. The fee schedule is next. So you want to have a vote on that and then, or do the fee presentation?
Mr. Bernard, you can just continue on with the presentation. I think they're both on the same subject, and we can, the City Commission can discuss them separately or together at their discretion.
Thank you very much. So you guys probably remember that in August of 2020, you updated the cemetery rules and regulations. At that time, the fees were not adjusted. So the additional rules and regulations added some good things in, made for an opportunity to encourage us to get the information at least 2 days in advance for burials, which is really important in terms of staffing and organizing. Unfortunately with COVID, we have had some weekends where we've had 7 or 8 funerals, and having less than 2 days is very problematic for us. So the exceptions can be made by the director. I have done a couple of those. The dilemma is really, you don't want to, a family is mourning and you don't want to say you can't do this Saturday, but if we don't get the information until late Friday, and we already have 3 other funerals, that's a problem. So a couple of times we have made that exception. Those are usually on weekends where we weren't booked so heavily, or where I've talked directly with the family and we have not had to turn anybody away because of that reason. So, the other thing you added was that family members have 90 days to hold and pay for a plot next to the deceased family member. And that has worked out really well. I'm going to run through the next slide because I just talked about it, but this is still on making sure that we get the directions, the verification for residency, if it's a resident rate, and making sure that if we have a perpetual, if we have a consistent business that has 3 or more violations in a 12-month period, that we could suspend
their access to the cemetery for a while. We have met with a couple of funeral homes and actually talked about some ways to help improve that process. And one of those is going to be, right now we take payment from the funeral home. Sometimes the family gets to the funeral home late, so the funeral home gets to us late. It's a lot easier to tell the family, sorry, we need to wait a couple days if we're dealing directly with them on the payment. So we used to do that, take the payment directly from the family. We are probably going to open that option back up, which makes it a little easier in those cases where we have to make exception on our emergencies not to. Payment for service charges, that needs to be paid, of course, at the time. Overtime charge, and this is something that was not previously in the fee schedule, the times of 9 to 2, outside of 9 to 2 Monday through Friday, and weekends were always part of the rules and regs. That fee is consistently $375, so we've added that to the schedule this time. So here's kind of our scenario. At Memorial, we have a total of 5,740 plots. Of those available, full size, which is adult full size, 35 square feet, is 1,349. Cremations 337, infants 86. And then at Pineview, we're full. And there are no more adult plots available full size. There are cremation plots and there are infant plots. And so the question has been asked, why can't we just put a couple of those plots together and make more adult plots? But they're not all lined up together. They were put in places where small lots would fit, but full-size plots wouldn't. So even if you combined all that you could, I think the net is 12 or 16. It is not very big. And went all the way back to 2018 to make sure that we weren't just looking at COVID numbers. 2018 to 21, the average is just under 200 burials a year. 78% of those are resident, 22% are non-resident. So with only 1,959 available spaces and really only 1,349 on full size, the cemetery would have the potential, well, it is going to be out of space within less than 10 years. So the importance of the perpetual care is once you no longer have space to sell, you no longer have a resource or a funding revenue source to maintain. And so that's why it's important. We'll go to the next page. And I'm sorry, Sam, I haven't been keeping an eye. You've done a great job of keeping up, so thank you. These fees for residents have not been adjusted since 1996. So that's 25 years. We did look at compared rates to other cities. I went back and calculated the CPI from 1996. And then we recommend a CPI going forward for plot and perpetual care so that we don't run into this issue where we don't look at fees for 25 years and then when we run the methodology and the numbers, it is a sticker shock. So that's what we're up against tonight. We calculated non-residents the same way with the CPI, but those fees were actually updated in 2014. So if you look strictly at percentages and wonder how come the percentage of a resident is going up so much more than a non-resident, it's because those fees were adjusted just 7 years ago, and it's almost 8 years ago now, and the others were not, the residents were not adjusted for 25. If you look at next page, please, the fees. So currently, a plot and perpetual care with a burial service of $535 is $1135. We're suggesting that a plot go up by the current cost of the property and the maintenance, and the perpetual care is on the escalator for this CPI. We are suggesting that the burial service fee stay the same, as well as the overtime rate stay the same. So that's on. If you look at residential full-size plot, 1135, it goes up to, the proposed is 2642. For the non-resident, it goes from 3,035 to 4,549. And then on down through, similarly, the exact same methodology was used, and the rates, we're still saying burial rates stay the same, and the cremation rate would go from 635 to 1114, and 435 to 1,054 on an input plot, and then cremation is 335 to 594, and then the non-residents, same methodology, same way through. If we look at the next slide, we did look at our city to the north, Pompano, Boca, and our city to the south, Pompano, and even our new rate is much lower than those the two rates. I will say in Boca, there is no, they don't take non-residents, and when we get into a couple future slides, we talk about how do we resolve this issue. That is one option for us. So what we're looking at is we're looking to approve the fees that with an automatic CPI adjustment going forward, and that would max at 3%. So on the years when the CPI is better than 3%, it would max at 3%. You could limit future burials to residents or immediate family members of those currently buried. That would help slow down the pace of filling the cemeteries. We already talked about kind of the late instructions and the exceptions. We want those fees for the late instructions to be approved. And then continued adherence to the rules. The last one I think is pretty important, and certainly comes with lots of pros and cons, but we would recommend that we at least explore the opportunity for mausoleums, including P3 opportunities. Mausoleums have an ROI of about 7 to 8 years, but you know all the capital needs we have, so maybe you could get a P3 partnership where they lease the land or give us a percent every year. The capital investment would not be on us. So just something to explore. And with that, I'm.
Thank you very much. Start with Vice Mayor Preston.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm really struggling with this, although I understand why we need to do this. We're in the middle of a pandemic right now. There's a loss of revenue, and almost every household, people, just don't have the money that they would normally have. On top of that, inflation is at a tremendous rate and putting a lot of pressures on a lot of families. Now, from where we are right now, a full service would cost you $1,135, and the proposal is going from that to $2,642. Correct?
That's correct.
So that would represent basically 145% increase. 145% increase. That's like, going to the gas pump and it's $3 a gallon, and all of a sudden it's $7. I mean, how do we survive? Though this is necessary and something that needs to be done, I just don't know that we should be doing it at this time. I think we should consider waiting a little bit and see what this pandemic does. It's really putting our community at odds and putting a lot of pressure. And additionally, if a person lost a family member, and we all understand what that's about, but they could not grieve properly because we have just said we're going to increase the cost of you burying your loved one 145%. And so that would be tough. So the grieving process gets worse. Just because where do I come up with the money to be able to do that? And then the other side is, you know, if we're going to do it, we ought to consider a schedule of how this would be met. For instance, if you were to take the total cost of where we need to be, $2,642, look at that cost. And how long would it take us to get there? If we were to take 25% each year and, you know, apply it in year 4, puts us where we need to be. So I would not support anything that just increases 145%. 145% in one shot. I would say that, you know, I'm more amenable to a schedule of how we get there. That's important. And the fact of the matter is we need to get there. Okay, our crisis, as just stated, hasn't changed in 25 years. And the other side of that is, I would hope this commission would say, because what we're hearing is that there's a financial crisis. One, you know, we need to be able to allow people actually who have loved ones in the graveyard to be able to grieve. Now we gotta have upkeep in our graveyard, so we gotta keep that into consideration. So that's important. But the other side of that is that in doing that, there's these other considerations. And this commission should consider the existing plots that we have left is for residents only. Because if we don't do that, without a doubt, we're going to run out of space. Without a doubt, it's going to happen. And I will tell you, even though we look at what the non-resident rates would look like, even with the new adjustment, a lot of people would say, okay, I'll pay it. That's good, I'll pay it. But we already know that we're in some form of a crisis with our residents. And so it would be the best move for us to say, you know, residents only. And I like to advise the commission that I spoke with Fairway Memorial, some of the representatives from there, but never been able to get a meeting where myself and the city manager could sit down and talk with them to see if there was a possibility that we might be able to work out some sort of an agreement, whether that was to purchase maybe 5 acres, whatever, and that would give us some additional space. But I think a meeting with them would be worth it. It could provide some opportunity. But I would ask this commission to truly consider residents only and a fee schedule. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Parnas.
And I hate to disagree with you. You were on the commission before. Was the subject ever brought up about increasing prices 10 years ago? No. Rates haven't gone up in 25 years. Whose fault is that? I'm not looking to put blame on anybody. But reality is reality. I buried my father 20 years ago. The plot, $6,000. Burial, $8,000. That was 20 years ago. Want to compare that to what we charge? No. It is an unfortunate fact that prices have gone up. The commissions before us for the last 25 years didn't do anything about making it equitable for the city. It's a city-owned cemetery. Costs have gone up, labor has gone up, upkeep has gone up. This is necessary, not joyously, oh, we're going to make a profit. No, it's necessary to keep our heads above water. And we're still cheaper than all the cities around us. This is necessary. I don't like to pay bills more than anybody else. But there comes a time when you're up here looking out for the city and where our money goes. We can't keep losing money. I think this is necessary. I think it's reasonable. And I don't look at percentages. I look at everywhere else and what they're charging, and they charge more, even after the increase. So I support this increase because I feel that it's necessary. I don't like it. I wish we didn't have to do it. But the commissions for the last 25 years have been negligent and not addressing this issue. To kick it down the road even further would be criminal, in my opinion. So I support this increase.
Commissioner Hudak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I as well support the increase. I think it is necessary. 1996 gas was $1.20 a gallon. So I understand the need for it. Having it gradually up, I don't know that that's really the way to go. I do feel that Vice Mayor's comments with regards to limiting who is buried in the cemetery is definitely valid based on the limited space right now. I think having residents only is a wise decision. We could limit it to immediate family members already being buried there as well. But I do think that it's important that we look at limiting the availability of these plots for non-residents. I just think it's come to the point where there's no other options. Otherwise, we're going to be fully filled in less than 9 years. And even with the onset of COVID or whatever the next pandemic is, it could be even sooner. So I think we need to really look at and moving this forward today. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Drosky, and Vice President.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not even so sure the city should be in the cemetery business in the first place. But to the extent that we are, I agree with my colleague, Commissioner Parnas. I thought his comments were spot on, actually, that if we're going to do this, we need to be with the times. Even with the increases, we're below all of the other cemeteries that are around us in a large circumference. It's not even close. So I likewise will be in favor of this. If there's some reasonable modifications that want to be proposed or suggested, I'll listen to those, but otherwise I'd be in favor of these two. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to reiterate that we're in the middle of a pandemic. Our country is in peril by this COVID-19. And I think that in and of itself should elicit some compassion to the financial situation of people that are going through issues right now with just putting food on the table. So if we were going to do this, I don't think it's wrong to say, let's have some sort of a schedule to do that. I agree with everything that each one of my colleagues have said. We need to get there. There's an issue. We need to address it. But it's not just addressing it, it's how we address it. Do we do it in a compassionate manner that will give the residents a chance to adjust? Each one of my colleagues, if somebody increased something on you right now, 145% more, you would not be happy. That's for sure. But to have some compassion for our residents is not wrong. I know that everything that you said, you're right. We need to get there, and we can get there. I'm not saying not to do this, but I'm saying that it's right to understand the situation that we're in, external of this. We're in the middle of a pandemic. You see the numbers, you know what's going on, you see the inflation rate. You see what's going on with money, people losing their jobs. So it's something that I think that we need to look at. We need to always show that we're compassionate for our residents, always. This is a unique circumstances. If the pandemic wasn't there, I would be more amenable to this. But that's where I'm at. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. To answer your question, Commissioner Parnas, look, I've been in office here now 12 years. I'll take some of that blame for it because, yeah, it's popped up over the years several times, and it's popped up even on the dais, I believe, several times about raising the rates and keeping them up close, because the issue that we've had is this has been abused for years. We've had so many people pull at whether it be elected officials, which shouldn't have happened, and management saying, oh, this person's a resident, this person's a resident. They may have been born here, they haven't lived here for 40 years, yet they wanted the resident rate. Never mind the fact that we've had the cheapest prices in any municipality. It's been abused, which is part of the reason why we have, we're upside down where we can be. I do agree with Commissioner Drosky. I don't like the fact that the city of Deerfield Beach is in the business of having cemeteries. So I'm not as open to looking to buy more land to bury more people. We're going to run. That's a business model we can never keep up with, over time. But I am interested in the mausoleum aspect. It gives us more bang for our buck and more spaces for people, give them some more options. So I think that is an interesting option. To the points that were made, I agree with Vice Mayor and most of my colleagues here, I believe, who mentioned it. It needs to be resident only at this point because we have limited space. It needs that, but it needs to be held to that. It can't be manipulated. We can't break the rules. We have to stick to that, and we have to know that. We have to know that all of us sitting up here, you're going to have people coming to you saying, "Oh, but we'll make your case." That's what's been going on for years. When we've tried to address it or we've brought it up, it's always been an issue. I think there are some things that have happened that we've done that we're cleaning up old messes that some of us, quite frankly, weren't aware of. I mean, that recent change that you brought forward with the cemetery that actually had it in its guidelines that, people that were not white could not be buried. I mean, that's an absolutely horrible thing. That's not something I was aware of at all. So I'm glad we're rectifying some of this old stuff. Shame on people who sat up here who knew about it back then that didn't have the guts to change it. So I applaud you for that. Here's where I struggle with it, and I am open-minded to Commissioner Preston's point, but I worry that it's going to be a bit of a gold rush. Once people realize the rates are going up, with limited space that we have, and knowing that the new fee structure is going to help us keep this going longer term, that people jump in at this already discounted price now because they know there's limited space and we need to get it before the price goes up. It's going to be a bit of a gold rush for people buying spaces. If I'm a guy selling a sandwich in town for $2 and everybody else has been selling it for 5 for years, and suddenly a pandemic hits and all these issues happen, I realize I can't keep up with that cost and I'm upside down. I don't have any shame or fear of saying I can't keep it up at $2 a sandwich. I got to get to 5 like everybody else is, pandemic or not. You have to do that. You can't say, well, sorry, customers, I have to, I can't, I have to raise that rate. That's just what you got to do to survive. And I think that's a little bit where we're at. This is not an everyday expense either. To say, well, it's during a pandemic, it's going to hit these individuals. It's going to hit a very small amount of people that are needing it during this time frame. So, anybody in the next 4 years are going to need it. Yes, that gives them a break. This isn't a day-to-day expense. I would struggle a little bit with, and probably be more on board with your point about the price increase being so sudden, if it was something that was a daily expense. It's not like we're going to say we're raising your water rates 40% right now. It's not, because it's not something that people use day to day. Matter of fact, a lot of times it's something that people don't expect to use. I am open-minded to that. I worry about the gold rush aspect of it, but I think 4 years is too long for me. I can be open-minded to that and figure out how we get there. Remove the non-resident for sure, and then make those changes to put us where we need to be, maybe in a shorter window. It doesn't sound like we have to vote support for that, but I would be open-minded to that. Maybe we can convince some people who aren't open-minded to it. I don't know how to address the gold rush aspect there. But I think if people are hurting now, they're going to jump in on it. I mean, we need to do an increase now. We need to do an increase right now, in my opinion. That would hold off some of the gold rush. But then maybe we break it up a little bit, maybe shorten that time window, eventually get where we need to be in a much shorter time window, do an increase right now, maybe slow up a gold rush on space, limited spaces, and then move it up and kind of help people out a little bit. So that would be something, a little bit of a hybrid of what you said. Hopefully we can. How can we do that? Well, I mean, I think the suggestion would be that, you know, we say, okay, we're going to do a, you know, if we shorten it from 4 years to 2 years, because I think what you're proposing in 4 years, obviously it makes sense that it's a 25% increase over time to get to where we go. Okay. If we do 2 years and it's 50% now immediately, knowing it's going to be 50% the next year after. Okay, that's the way I would break it. Does that make sense? I have my shoes on. I can't count that fast, but I'm just thinking that.
Yes, Mayor. In fact, that was something along the lines of what so. Yeah, in considering a lot of these comments, that's kind of what I was thinking. If you did 50% today, and then in a year from now, the remainder of that increase, that would, I think, get us to where our staff believes we should be in terms of our rates. I think also in consideration that, and I did not hear this, I'll bring this up. You know, we have less than 10 years left on our plots. And so if you wait 4 years, knowing that we've been behind for so long on the perpetual care fund, that, you know, we're not going to catch up, not with the time that we have left. That's just not going to happen. But the extent that we can stop the bleeding, I think we should. So to me, when you look at 4 years getting to that rate, which does not then take into consideration cost of living increases from now until the 4 years, we'll still be very far behind. But you know, maybe if you did 50% today and then 50% a year from now, and then allowed the CIP to continue thereafter until we run out of the plots, that might be something to consider.
If we were to pass this, what would this go into effect?
This would go into effect, I believe we put this to go into effect upon passage.
Yeah.
And I also just want to make a comment too, and I'm going to hand this over to the city attorney, but the question I also have for him too is we may need to bring this, if that is amenable and approved by the commission. I think we purposely put this resolution onto the first reading in case there was discussion and changes. We could bring the resolution back for second reading if there was substantial changes to have that passed on the second reading. And I'll get to the trainer.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And I just wanted to point out too that the ordinance item, which is item number 16, does not affect, the changes in there do not affect how much residents pay. That's about, once the city receives the money, where does the money go, what fund, and then what could it be used for? So just keep that in mind. That is first reading tonight. As the manager mentioned, we will have a second reading. So you have a couple of options if you want to make changes to the fee schedule. If you can clearly identify what those changes are tonight, we can do them tonight. Or if it's the commission's pleasure, we can bring them back on second reading of the ordinance and have that resolution follow on the second reading of the ordinance at the next meeting.
I'm going to open it up to the public to have a discussion before that slips past us. Okay. Anyone from the public here to comment on this item? Okay, I don't see anybody to be read then. Okay, I'm going to close it to the public then. I know we've had 2 workshops on it, so you know, I think we discussed it quite a bit, but I think we can iron it all out here. Like, I think we do 50% increase going into effect. We go residents only, which I think is what you're looking at. We give direction to staff that we look at possibly other options if everything's open to that. And then on the second year, we go to the full amount that we need to be at, and then we put CPI into effect that helps us maintain. You know, otherwise, we're going to have a problem. And realizing that we're 10 years out, 4 years, if you said we're gonna be hurting, and we might not have these spaces by a year. 3 or 4. So, Commissioner Parnas, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, look, we're gonna be getting out of the cemetery business unless we buy more land for it. And I don't think that's a bad thing, to get out of the cemetery business. I understand doing 50% this year and then increasing it. Those people that'll rush, we may sell out the remaining plots to residents only in the next year because they realize it's gonna go up even further. If that's the case, with the pandemics going the way they are, we may fill up sooner than we think, and then we're out of the business, except to maintain what we already have with the fees that we charge for perennial care. That in itself is not a bad thing, unless we want to stay in the cemetery business and buy more land and open another cemetery. So I can easily approve 50% increase tonight. 1 year from now, the balance, and have it for residents only. I have one question about that. Suppose my dad were alive and he lived with me, he was a resident, and I had to put him in assisted living in Boca for a year, then he dies. I couldn't bury him here, even though he may have been a resident 30 years.
And
Because he's now.
Yeah, that's actually.
Well, that's what I want clarified, because he's now living in Boca in an assisted living place for a year or so.
Yeah, your current rules and regulations allow for that exception.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I have no problems with approving this. I'll put a motion on the floor if you'd like.
If I may, Commissioner, before you make a motion, I just want to suggest that maybe you handle the ordinance item first on first reading and take a vote on that, since that doesn't really deal with the fees that the residents pay for. So then we could focus on the fee schedule and make a clear motion and direction on the fee schedule. Yeah.
All right, then I'll make a motion that we approve the item as is.
And that's the ordinance, correct? Item
That's
number
the
16.
ordinance. Revise and update the cemetery provisions providing for qualification, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so just for item 16, we have a motion by Commissioner Parnas, seconded by Vice Mayor Preston. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston.
Yes.
Mayor Diaz.
Yes.
Okay, so now you're on item 17, the fee schedule.
Just to kind of get a round robin here, Commissioner Drosky, are you okay with what's been proposed?
I am, yes.
Okay, Commissioner Hudak?
Affirmative.
Okay. Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor, that's where we're at. Okay, so just for clarity, anyone who wants to make a motion, we're looking to remove non-residents. We're going to go with 50% increase once this goes into effect. The second year, the other 50% going up to the rates that we agreed to, well, plus CPI going into effect at that point. We're going to pursue mausoleum options. And that's the changes that we're proposing as of right now.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Preston, seconded by Commissioner Parnas. Is there anything we're missing on that? Are we okay?
I just wonder if the second part of the year 2, it may be more or less than 50%. I believe Commissioner Parnas suggested that it be the balance of, is it maybe be 50% now?
Okay. 50% now, the second year is the balance of where we.
Yeah, and then I guess I should ask, you're saying 50% above what it is now, or 50% of the delta between what it is now and what is proposed?
What was proposed, 50% of the new
Okay,
rate of
so
what
we do
was
50%.
proposed.
then it's 50%. Okay.
Does that make sense? Does that work for you, City Manager?
Yes, it'll be, get us 50% of the difference that we're at today,
Yeah.
making up the difference to include the CPI in year 2.
Yeah. Okay. That's the motion to make. Commissioner Parnas. Or excuse me, Vice Mayor Preston made it. Seconded by Commissioner Parnas. Okay, roll call, please.
Commissioner Drosky,
Yes.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Preston?
Yes.
Mayor Hans?
Yes.
Okay, we are now at comments by administration and legal. I will go first. I just want to wish everyone a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year and a better 2022. And I'll turn it over to the manager.
Thank you. I do have a few comments for this evening. First, Broward Days is coming up January 17th to 19th. I will be in attendance along with staff, and I believe Commissioner Kudak is going. There were two items that were brought up for discussion or for staff to investigate, and I want to just give an update on that. One was looking at bonfires on the beach. We have researched that. We're moving forward with a special event application. So we want to go ahead and test the waters on that coming up probably either late January, early February, and analyze the costs. And that way we found out is that I think it is Lake Worth. They do that as like a city-sponsored special event. And so we'll go ahead and move forward and test the waters on that, see how it goes, and then go ahead and plan for some funding of that for the following year. And then we also looked into the Clean Waterways LLC, the waterways cleaning service from the city of Fort Lauderdale. And come to find out, what we know so far is that the city of Fort Lauderdale paid $350,000, which what appears to be 2 months worth of work. Now, I'm not saying that that was expended within 2 months. It could have been like 4 hours a day. We don't know the particulars on that, but what's more important to me is to understand, one, that was in the, and I will pronounce this wrong, Himashira Canal? Hamarshi, see, I knew I would. Hamarshi Canal, and I understand that that's a heavily polluted canal. So looking at what was in that canal that may have made this technology effective, and then what do our canals look like in comparison to that? How effective was the technology in those canals? All these sorts of questions we have posed to both the vendor and the city of Fort Lauderdale. And I think over the holidays, we just really haven't gotten much traction on that from them. And we're still waiting on that. So at that price tag of $350,000, that would, at this point, expend the majority of your capital expense budget from the solid waste fund. But we want to get some more information and bring that back to you. I think that is it, except for the fact that I would like to recognize Mr. Tom Good. Mr. Good's last day with the city is today, and he is here tonight with his wife to support him. I want to say that I have known Tom since the day he started. I have been impressed by what he has done, not only as the Director of Environmental Services, but as the Assistant City Manager as well. When I came on board and I looked around at who could help me even in the interim as an Assistant City Manager, I found Mr. Good's professionalism, experience, and love for the city to be a no-brainer, in my opinion, to bring him on as the Assistant City Manager. And as the commission was gracious enough to give me the position, I won't say give me, but I earned the position of City Manager. So did Mr. Good. And I want to say that he has been a complete Assistant City Manager from the perspective of always doing what was in the best interest of the city, with the residents and myself and the city commission in his heart. And so I am truly, truly blessed to have worked with him. I am amazed at, I think, what we have learned together along the way. And I wish him the very best in his future endeavors on both his personal and his professional career. So I just want to thank you so much, Tom, for everything that you have done.
Tom, this is your exit interview. If you'd like to come forward.
spin 3 times and click my heels, right? I'm very humbled by the words of the city manager. I do want to say I am, from my heart, I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to serve you all, and serve the residents of the great city of Deerfield Beach. You know, things happen, you know, life changes, you have to make adjustments. I've had to make some decisions that were in the best interest for me, family, and my extended family. I can tell you that this is probably one of the toughest decisions I've ever had to make when it comes to this transition. I really do enjoy this city, and the decision was for several reasons. The first one being is I've watched you all as a commission and staff grow in stature and in credibility within this county, in Broward County. And it's not just in Broward County, it's also the state and the federal level. What you all have done is from my eyesight, incredible in terms of turning the tables, getting the energy, getting the commitments from some of these agencies to Deerfield. And today, Deerfield is probably one of the most exciting places in all of Broward County. You can go to any city and they know who Deerfield Beach is. A lot of that is because of what you have done. Another reason why this was really tough for me is because of the people here in the city. I mean, as simple as today, I took an opportunity to meet with, you know, the front line and you know, the people behind the scene, you know, who really work hard to make this city function as good as it does. Because I'm going to tell you, this is a good functioning city. It's a responsive city. It does more than I've seen a lot of other big cities do. And very, very proud of those people. But also with you as the commission mayor, I got to tell you, people don't see what you do. I did. The strength that you have in adversity, the people that you challenged in these agencies that are multi-billion-dollar agencies to defend this city, to bring a betterment to this city. I've seen that. I don't think people get a chance to do that. But your strength and adversity has taught me, don't be afraid, you know, stand true and stand behind the people that you represent. Incredible. And Vice Mayor, I'm going to say this, I don't know anybody that loves their commission, their constituents any more than you. Your love for people that you serve is just phenomenal. You engage them, you comfort them, you guide them. I mean, it's taught me how to be a better servant, watching you serve your people. And I know Commissioner Drosky, you're listening, but you're an incredible, hardworking, elected official that I've ever known, because I don't know if there's anybody that understands the 4 points of Deerfield Beach like you. You engage with all of the constituents and get all the information. So when you make a decision, it's based on all 4 points of the city. And I do appreciate you and your talent for that. And I gotta say, Commissioner Parnas, you know, you got a lot of stories. And anybody who listens to you, you know, you got to listen to you a long time before you start hearing the stories the second time around. You have a very colorful life. But I got to tell you one thing. Your stories have lessons, life lessons, that I am so glad to know some of these stories, because I care to share them with my children and with other youth, because you've been around the block. If anybody asks you, maybe 4 or 5 times. But I do want you to know that the stories do mean a lot to me. And Commissioner Hudak, I do want to tell you that from the day I met you, you're never afraid to put your hands in the work, do what you need to do in order to be able to help the people that you serve. You're one of the very, very hard worker, engaging with your residents the way that you do, and you taught me how to put my hands in the mess and try to help clean it up. And I also like to say then to the city manager as well, and he did give me some very kind words, but I want you all to know that, you know, he's a manager, but he's more than a manager. He's a leader. Listen, this city manager, yeah, he does some stuff, but the most important thing that he does is he is able to take a bunch of people who have a lot more knowledge than either one of us in their areas of discipline, and he's able to get them to work together collaboratively on a common goal, on a single vision, heading true north. That's a leader. That's what you have in the city manager. And Mr. Attorney, I can't leave you out. I've known Attorney Soroka for many, many years. And I'll say this, at this point in our lives, I will never want to be an opposing counsel to you. You have a wonderful knowledge. You're a great asset to the city. If I had to guess, I would say you would be here longer than Mr. Morales. They're a tremendous asset to the city. With that, I just wish all of you many blessings to you, many blessings to the staff, many blessings to the entire city of Deerfield Beach. Thank you all again for allowing me the opportunity to work and serve the city of Deerfield Beach. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You stepped in here, we were very lucky to get a rock star. That's what we were told we were getting. We certainly got that. From projects jumping right into the fire with things like the canal project that we had over at the Kingfisher Canal, and all the projects you've tackled. One of the great things about you is your ability to speak to residents, have them understand some very complicated things, the pitfalls, the challenges, and the solutions. You're always solution driven. So I just want to thank you. I know some of the tinfoil hat wearing crowd has tried to say that, oh, Tom's been forced out and asked to resign. We all know that's not true. And every town has their residents who choose to take on roles, and we seem to be flush with village idiots. That happens. But I want to say you handled that tremendously through the years. Tom, you're going to be missed. And my hometown of Cooper City is lucky to get you. So thank you very much, Tom. Patty, good to see you. Thanks for sharing with us all these years. Is that it? City manager?
That is enough from me this evening. Thank you.
Now on comments by mayor and city commission.
Start with District 1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, Tom, thank you very much for those kind words. You are the first person when I was a private citizen that I dealt with when working with the city with regards to the flooding situation on my road. And it was your professionalism that made me realize that working with city staff is something that convinced me to actually run for office. So it was your professionalism and just your overall service attitude that really inspired me to run for office. So I am going to miss working with you. We will, see each other as, colleagues now, as, commissioners in separate cities. And I wish you well in your future endeavors. One question as I do have is for the city manager is with regards to the status of the Pioneer Park dock. I thought I was advised that we had the funding all set and that construction was going to begin in October. But here we are, January, and still I don't see anything. So I was just curious if we've got any time frame of when this construction is going to start and when it's going to be completed by.
Commissioner, we have issued that purchase order for shift actually, I should say the contractor. There was a change order required for that within my threshold to manage what is called the gangway, which takes you to the new floating dock, which was unanticipated. So that change order is underway in the system for processing, and then they'll be able to complete the rest of those purchases that are required. There's been a delay with some of those purchases. There's, as we know, there's many supply shortages right now. So as soon as we get all that information in on the change order and it gets through the system and the supplies come in, we'll be able to move forward. The actual construction is not anticipated to take very long. And just based on where we are in this time of year, I think it's actually, I appreciate you bringing that up, because maybe at this, I guess a good question, for the commission is, knowing that we're in season right now, it may be in our best interest to wait until it dies down a little bit in terms of the volume over, February and March, and then knock that out, because it will close that boat ramp for a few weeks. So that might be something we want to consider.
Well, I was out there this weekend, and I want to make sure it's not hazardous, because there are pieces that are falling apart. There are pieces that are blocked off. There are pylons that are missing on the walkway. We got to get this done before somebody gets hurt, before something gets damaged.
So we will.
Are you looking for input from the rest of the commission?
If the committee.
Here's what I would say. This needs to be done ASAP. I don't want to wait. It's going to be close for 2 weeks. That's fine. But if we can't shore this up to make it at least somewhat respectable out there, because I don't think it is the way it is now. If it can't be, and while we wait for that special 2 weeks, I don't think that special 2 weeks of downtime is really going to happen later on, because there's the other boat ramps around, like in Boca, are closed. So this is going to be hot for a while. We need to rip the Band-Aid off, and we need to get it done right. We need to do it as soon as possible. That's my opinion. Anyone else want to chime in on that and give some direction?
I've been asking for the same thing, so I appreciate your support. Is there any more direction needed on that, or are we good?
Vice Mayor, Commissioner Parnas, Commissioner Frosty, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I'll be attending Broward Days, at least at this point, which will be from the 17th to the 19th. One of the things I really want to focus on is these short-term rentals. I really want to make sure that we drive that home to legislation up in Tallahassee. That has been a huge challenge, especially in District 1. Two of my neighbors are now short-term rentals. So I feel it just as much as a lot of the residents in District 1 do. So that is going to be one of my main focuses, is just seeing what we can do to get some legislation on the books to try to curtail this. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. If I were to ask any of my colleagues or those of you in the audience who Viola Lauzo is, would you know? If you do, raise your hand. Viola Lauzo. And here's why I asked that question. She was a mother of 5. She was from Pennsylvania. And in 1965, she was assassinated, murdered, taken away from her kids. And what she did was she left Pennsylvania to help fellow Americans during the civil rights struggle. She was white, and she went down to help with that. And the reason I bring that up is that we have Martin Luther King coming up, the event. And if, a lot of people don't know a lot about Dr. King, other than you hear the name. And you need to know the experience, where he was not just a civil rights leader, he was a great American. Why was he great? Because he advocated what he did with nonviolence. He once told a group of people that you must be strong to walk with him. What were they referring to? In other words, you had to endure dogs biting you, people spitting on you, and if you couldn't handle that, then you couldn't walk with them. That was the rules. And now we're going to commemorate this man this month, and we need to know what we're commemorating, more than just the name. We need to understand. Look at our country right now, how fractured it is along racial lines, and we would probably just pass right by it. We don't want to talk about it too much, but it is a reality. And so I'm going to encourage all of you, all of the city of Deerfield Beach, to come out on the 17th, and which is Martin Luther King Day, and just enjoy in the festivities. It is not for Black people, it's for all of us, the residents of the city of Deerfield Beach, and it commemorates a great man that worked very hard to bring people together, unity, giving true definition to what we say that we are on a daily basis. The parade will start at 10 a.m. and it will start from St. Ambrose and it will conclude over at Oviedo at 1 o'clock to 1:30. The keynote speaker will be Kelvin Hughes from Channel 10. And at 1:30, all of my colleagues, you will be speaking, and that will be the time for the elected officials from 1:30 to 2 p.m. And then from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., we're going to have live music, and there's going to be, kids activity. This is an invitation to all of the city of Deerfield Beach. Everybody, just come out and have a good time. Come out and let's understand what that day is all about. It is a day of unity. It's not a day of just celebration to just a man. It's what he stood for. It's what he stood for. You know how hard it is, because I came up in a time where there was segregation in this country. And by the way, segregation was by law. It was by law. But for a man to say that that is wrong, for people to beat him, there was dogs that, in different cities where the police put dogs on him, but he was an advocate of nonviolence. That's special. That's special. Okay, to see all Americans as one, to understand that we all had something in common. That is that we believe in the belief that all people in this country can be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. And that is great. So we have a responsibility, all of us, to carry that on and not just acknowledge the day. Okay, so please come out on the 17th and have a good time. I would like to ask the city manager to look at setting up a testing site. We had a testing site for COVID over at the tennis courts over when it first was really bad, and it was very successful. I'd like to see that reestablished testing site for COVID. And I would like for us to see about getting in contact with Feed South Florida to see if we can do something, the city can partner with them, because I'm hearing all kinds of problems of people unable to put food on the table for their kids because of this pandemic. For us to ignore what we really are faced with is to also turn away from the reality of how we've been affected by it. So we have a responsibility, all of us. And I'd like to thank my colleagues for making that pay adjustment. Though I would have liked to see a little bit more, it's going to help people who, that would struggle with such a tremendous increase in 1 year. So I'd like to thank you all. That's it from me, Mayor.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. District 3.
I were writing a book on the epitome of an assistant manager, you'd be the star. The reason I say that is when I came on board and I needed stuff done, rather than go to the city manager, I was kind of directed, ask Tom Good. Whatever I asked, whether it be speed bumps for a neighborhood, fixing the Little League fields for a national or rather a statewide tournament, you got it done. And the reason I say you are the epitome of what an assistant manager is, you let our city manager be the general of the whole city. You took all of these things off his back and got them done. And I don't know whether people said thank you or not, but I want to take this opportunity to say thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, because you were my go-to guy to get stuff done. And I'm sure Dave appreciated the fact that you took a lot of the little grunt work off his back that people would normally bother the city manager with, so that he could do his job as well as he does. So I say thank you. Now, as far as District 3 is concerned, and the whole city, those of you that had Lamar Fisher as your county commissioner in Deerfield Beach no longer have it. Mark Bogan, who's working on his third term as county commissioner, is now the county commissioner for the entire city of Deerfield Beach. They redistrict every so many years, and that's what he was given. You know, they say pick A, B, or C. And then they decide, no, you're getting A, whether you like it or not. And so he is now our county commissioner. I've worked with him on some projects, and he gets stuff done. And I'm hoping that soon we'll invite him to the city chambers to speak as our commissioner. And that's all I have. Have a happy new year and a healthy one. And please keep attending meetings. We welcome you here.
District 4.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to first jump on the Tom Good bandwagon as well, and rightfully so. I'm not downstairs. I'm upstairs tonight because of the COVID separation. But if I were downstairs, I would tell Tom, you know, exactly what I told him privately during our conversation this past weekend. We had a long discussion, and you know, the private thoughts, you know, and discussions that we had will stay that way. But what I would like to say publicly is that Tom had an innate ability to deal with the residents that I really haven't seen many other department heads have. I mean, he was able to diffuse very tense situations with the residents, to understand and hear their problems and let them know that the city of Deerfield Beach not only was listening, but actually responded and took care of their problems. And so that type of white glove touch is going to be missed. But more importantly, Tom brings with him, you know, over a decade's worth of institutional knowledge which reflects in my district with respect to waste management and Mount Trashmore and the Resource Recovery Board, and then also Southwest 10th Street. His knowledge base on those two subjects alone is going to be sorely missed. Those are two areas that are very important to the city. They're going to remain on the forefront. They're going to be very contentious going forward. And to lose that institutional knowledge basically cannot be replaced, because it's decades worth of knowledge that he has, and it will be missed. I know he's only a phone call away, but it won't be the same without Tom. So I know why he's doing this, and I certainly encourage people to do things that are in their own best interest. And I wish him and Patty and their kids nothing but the best going forward. They have been not just colleagues to work with, but also friends. And I expect it to be that way going forward. So Tom, congratulations, you know, moving forward. Don't forget about us, because we certainly won't forget about you. It's kind of downhill after that, but I do want to announce that this Saturday, January 8th, is the Constitution Park cleanup from 9 a.m. to noon. So if your kids need service hours, or if you just want to come out and make Constitution a more beautiful place than it already is and help clean up, that is from this Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon. We've danced around it a little bit today, but we haven't really said it directly. The third item that I have is, the Florida legislative session begins very shortly. And that's why Broward Days that, we've talked about a couple of times is coming up, is because the Florida legislative session begins. And I commend Commissioner Hudak for keeping an eye on the short-term rentals, which greatly impacts the city of Deerfield Beach. But as we've known from years past, there's issues that can come up on moment's notice. The bills that are filed now, yes, we're aware of them, but the legislature can also bring things up at the last minute on the last day of the session. So it's something to keep an eye on. I know we have staff that's their sole responsibility is to keep an eye on what's going with the legislative session and the bills that are being contemplated and passed and not passed. But this year, like any other year, deserves a keen eye on what's going on in Tallahassee, only because they are stewards of our money as well. Like the residents of Deerfield Beach keep a keen eye on us. It's our responsibility to keep a keen eye on the state legislature as well. And I know me and my colleagues will do that going forward, but that begins soon. And I encourage the residents to also likewise reach out to your state representatives, because we as city commissioners have only so much influence on the state, but when they hear from you, it seems to go a long way. So please stay engaged in the process. It's government at work. And so you need to stay engaged and find out what the state is going to be doing moving forward. And lastly, I also would like to wish not only the city manager and the city attorney, but my colleagues and all the residents, a happy new year. I've heard a lot in the news about all the negatives that are out there, that there's, the rise in COVID, there's inflation, there's this, there's that. But I'd like to take a different approach to it and think of it as, this new year is 365 new opportunities that we have, 365 opportunities that we didn't have before. And let's not squander those going forward. We have an opportunity to make a great city even better. And I said it last year that I have an agenda that I would like the city to pursue, more P3 opportunities, the Four Corners area of my district, the Dixie corridor. There are very key aspects, Southwest 10th Street. I could go on for a while now, but these are key core projects that are going to affect our city long after all of us on the dais are out of office. This is going to be for future commissions to handle. And these are seeds that we can start planting now. And I challenge myself, I challenge staff, and I challenge my colleagues to keep the pressure on, keep the pedal down, moving forward. I mean, every day is a new opportunity, and let's not squander one of those opportunities going forward. The citizens demand it, and we owe it to them going forward. And so I think if we work together like we have in the past years, I think 2022 can be a very special year. I'm looking forward to it. I know the city manager and staff are working on it. I know my colleagues have great ideas as well. And so just think of it not as what bad things are to come, but what good things are coming and how we can make that happen. And with that, I'm going to stop and leave it to the mayor.
Thank you very much. I'm not going to mention Tom anymore. I'm done with him. But, honestly, there are some other issues that I do want to touch on. We have major issues still over at Praxis. I've gotten 2-3 different calls this week about lack of maintenance, the conditions that are over there. I know we have code enforcement looking into it, but I think we need to look. We know what these people are as far as the landlords that are there. They came before us, they lied to us, they tried to get in. We were, we had a choice between allowing them to become involved with HUD or shutting it out completely and keeping those people on the streets. Quite frankly, I look back at that decision, I regret making it because we deal with some underhanded people who I think are nothing but slumlords. I think we need to do what we can to have HUD pull their funding out of it, let those people go back to Vegas, Pennsylvania, or where the hell they're from, or someplace much further south, a lot warmer as far as I'm concerned, and let them go there, and we'll find these residents different places, because this is a slum setting that shouldn't be like that. These people are degenerates who run it, and I've had it. So that's what I would like to see moving forward. If I could use some stronger language, I certainly would. This is not the way people should be living, should be treated. And we do it because they lied to us in front of us. Here, we knew it right then. So this is what happens when you deal with people like that. I do have a question about MLK. One of the things we have is a parade that's in here. And my understanding is that parade route goes from St. Ambrose Church all the way to Oviedo McKeithen Park. I don't understand the parade route. We're shutting down Federal Highway. And the whole point of the parade is have residents involved and get involved. But from St. Ambrose to really, as you make a left onto Hillsborough, there are no residents that are going to be there. We've done this before. We've seen other parades. We might have 5 people there. So we're shutting down a major artery to do this parade. And yet it's not impacting the residents. It's not allowing them the opportunity to participate. It's really just a bunch of businesses that are there. So, having gone this route before, I've never seen people line up on the streets there. Even if they did, we couldn't reach them. If you think about where the path would go, we're heading north, we're making a left. We might get residents on the west side of Federal, but we're not going to be able to throw candy to them and do anything. If anything, it's all businesses. I remember a few of the businesses came out, but that's it. And so it's almost like a dead parade for 25% of this parade route. So I don't understand it. I could even make a case of why we're going to do it even along Hillsborough, because if we go from maybe to Women's Club, maybe if we started the route at the Women's Club and went that way. I do know residents come out because it is more popular along the library and on the south there, that we have residents come out for all of our parades that we do. It's still not a lot, really not a lot. The heart of it is when we get further over and we get kind of past the old bazaar market. Where I have seen a lot of people engage and get involved with is, if you remember the one year when we walked from Oviedo and we walked down from Oviedo to McKeithen Park to do a day of service when we work on the Pasture Ford Park. We all walked down MLK. You have residential that's right there. People came out, walked with us, and came over to at least, whether they participated or not, they at least engaged. And I think we're taking a big portion of where this parade is going, and we don't even give an opportunity for residents to engage because it's not logistically, it doesn't work. Personally, I think the parade should start somewhere around Pastor Ford's church and move up to Oviedo, or start at the Women's Club so we can capture all those residents along there. But going from St. Ambrose doesn't make any sense to me. So I just disagree with the parade route wholeheartedly on that. So I don't know what can be done or maybe can be done, but I think we're missing the mark on that. We talked about what's happening up in Tallahassee, and I spoke to a reporter today from the Sun Sentinel who was asking mayors in beach cities about a potential bill that's being passed around up there about no smoking on beaches. I think Sarasota, some of the representative from Sarasota is bringing that forward. And what it would essentially do is not say that the state of Florida would ban smoking on beaches, but it would actually go in reverse of what we've seen taken away from us, is give us some home rule and allow cities to make those decisions themselves. I know sitting up here a long time, this has popped up many times. Can we have no smoking sections of the beach? Can we do different things? We know when we do our beach cleanups, the impact that we see from cigarettes, from all the cigarette busts, predominantly what we pick up when we do those things. And it's interesting to see what happens with that, because if the state allows cities and gives them home rule to make a decision on that, maybe that opens up the door for other things like vacation rentals and all the stuff that we feel that, it's a mistake by the state of Florida to blanket law or ordinance or policy that affects, the entire state when it can't be applied the same in different areas. We're densely populated. We have a very unique area, we're extremely different than if you were to go over to, the Gold Coast further north where it's not as popular. It's very different. So, to have a blanket law in place that you think is helping everybody, it's not. Most of the time, it's hurting a lot of people. So, giving the cities the ability to make rules that benefits the residents is what should be happening. So, I'll be very curious to see what happens with that. I am extremely frustrated and disappointed yet again with our beach enforcement. I know I've talked to the city manager and chief. I shouldn't be seeing pictures on social media of people's dogs on the beach. I shouldn't be seeing people riding bikes all over our boardwalk, electric bikes, things like that. I've talked to the chief and the city manager. I'm hoping to see some improvements, but it needs to happen. And it needs to happen fast. I know there's been some efforts on the COVID testing side. I really appreciate the vice mayor bringing that up. It's something that I know we were looking at doing and trying to have happen in our city, and the best place to do it is Whitewaters Park. But the problem was, because of the Renaissance Festival, it couldn't happen. But I know there's got to be some other options. So as the point was made, let's see what we can find out. And it will be on a smaller scale than what it could be, just because of what kind of space we're going to have. Certainly, something needs to be done because we don't demand is not sort of that. Other than that, I believe that is all that I have. I want to wish everybody a happy New Year. Looking forward to hopefully all of this craziness passing. With that, looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion moved. Second.
Motion adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.